Wake up in the morning light, black is gone with the dead of night, Lord, I know you're the one. I take a look into the mirror, silence whispers in my ear, Lord, I know you're the one.
Lord, I absolutely know you're the one. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Hope and the Truth. What is that beautiful music? That's Pastor Stevie Robinson, the one. Great song. Thank you, sir, for sharing that with us. Today, we've got a great show. Jamie, how are you today?
Feeling great.
He's feeling great. Oh, it is a great day. It's the Lord's Day. We've got a great, amazing guest who I've known for a number of years. She has an amazing program. Her name is Sheree Corniel. The program is, and I hope I said her last name right, is Real Talk. She's going to tell you all about this program. It's been in existence for quite a few years now. It's been changing many, many, many lives and communities as well. So we're going to welcome Sheree to the show.
Unmuting.
We can unmute her. All right. She's going to come through in a second.
Unmute.
There we go.
There you go.
Sheree, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Lance. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and share my story.
We are blessed to have you here. Why don't you tell the audience about the Real Talk program?
So the Real Talk program, I've been operating it now. It's going to be actually 8 years in June of this year. And it's a local nonprofit here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we basically, the whole goal is to change the lives of the youth that we service. And then with that being said, we change the lives of our ex-felons that we use and also the families and the communities that are involved with us. We basically sit a group of young boys and girls ages 8 to 18 in the big auditorium setting. And we allow people who've been through the system, unfortunately, to share their testimonies about how they ended up where they are, in hopes that the kids would take heed and not get involved in the things that they did at that age. So we just allow them to testify, basically, and for the kids to get a grip. And if they are on track, to stay on track. And if they're not on track, to get on track. It's a proactive and reactive program. You know, we combine all the kids from the community and court-ordered kids. The idea behind that is we want to make sure that those kids who are not on track, they can get on track after they're in the program. And those who are on track, this is just a reminder to them, to let them know that they really definitely want to stay on track and not veer to the wrong side of some of the kids that they're involved with in the program, or some of our ex-offenders that are actually speaking to the youth.
Well, I love your program. I was blessed enough to meet you from Lori. Lori actually introduced us. That's who got me interested, and I got to sit in on one of the programs. I was grateful to speak. But what I found amazing is not just how you have the testimonies of former felons that come, a lot of them have given their life to Christ. They share their stories, and it's great because it's relatable. I think it's good. They're not coming in there with gloves on. They're saying, hey, look, this is the life that I chose. You don't have to choose this same thing. The other thing I love about your program is that you're not just addressing the problem. You also provide a solution. And one of those solutions is to help provide activities for these kids. Because too often someone points out like, hey, stay out of trouble. But they're not providing the extracurricular activities that these kids need. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that a lot of times it's boredom. It's the situational environment that they're in. They don't have the same options as everyone else. So tell me a little about, or the audience a little about, how you provide these activities for these kids once in the program and what it takes. How do they get access to these things?
Yes, absolutely. And, and then you hit the nail on the head. These kids need to have some type of outlet and something to keep them motivated to stay out of trouble. And so that was part of the idea behind it all, with giving them a tool when they leave us to use and take away their excuses. We do this program only once a month. And the idea behind the once a month, it's the first Tuesday of the month. And the idea behind that is we want to give these kids something to take home and think about. And on top of thinking about what they've heard from the folks who've made, mistakes in their lives, we give them also hope and encouragement to take home with them when they leave us and say, hey, we're here to help you stay on the right course. And we're here to help you, for those who are on the right course, to stay on the right course. And so we offer them any extracurricular activity they want to do at no expense. It can be in their neighborhood. It can be across town. Obviously, they would have to have transportation if that mattered. But if they needed transportation, we'd get them bus passes as well. But the idea behind it is for them to get into something that they love or enjoy or want to experience. And we pay up to $150 a month, providing they have a 2.0 with passing grades. They remain in compliance. And the passing grades, obviously, we've had some kids that want to get involved and they have 2 fails and an A or 2 fails and 3 A's. It just doesn't happen. We don't allow kids to have fails to get funding. They have to bring those grades up. And they also write us a nice thank you letter expressing gratitude, sharing as to why this means so much to them. And then once that's reviewed, all the letters are reviewed by myself, because I don't want these kids to think that they can just skate through life, just fill out a sheet of paper and give me 2 sentences, and then I give them $150 or give the vendors up to $150 for them to participate. So once it's all cleared and everything is good, they give me a copy of their grades, they get us a thank you letter, and they give us the information regarding the vendor, whoever it is. It could be boxing, football, taekwondo, and Muay Thai boxing, whatever it is that they choose that's on their heart. We will write a check to that vendor. And every month, that child, they can start the first month they join the program. And the program is for 3 months. It's one time a month. And again, the idea when we send them home, we want them to go home already knowing that I can do boxing now. My mom couldn't afford it or my dad couldn't afford it, but Real Talk's going to pay for it. So now we've got them involved in a boxing facility for 30 days. And then when they come back to us the next month, they will now hear another 3 stories from the other 3 speakers that we have who share their testimony, which we hope that it would definitely keep the kids engaged as far as, wow, I really want to stay with boxing. I don't want to end up like Mr. Rogelio. I heard this about Mr. John last month. So this is type of a motivating factor for these kids to stay engaged outside of Real Talk, get the funding they need, and we'll do it as long as we have the money. We have these kids for 3 months. After 3 months, you've come 3 months to the program, you graduate. And so we don't stop there, though, because obviously we don't want to give a kid or a child 3 months of help as far as their activity and then say, okay, you graduated, we're done with you. So I work really hard to try and get these kids more funding to continue them through the process. So if they join us at 8 and they get involved in an activity, they can stay to the next 10 years as long as my money's here. They just have to ask us that they let us know that they want to continue to do their activity after they graduate. And then they graduate and they want to do boxing. Then what we'll do is tell them you can. We will go ahead and continue to pay for that. But you have to donate 4 hours of your time a month to our program at the program the first Tuesday of the month. Once they come and do their community service, then we continue to supply them the funding to do whatever they wish to do. And they can change their activity as many times as they want. We really want them to find something that they're really talented in, or even if they want to just explore, if they've never done horseback riding, I want to try that, Miss Sheree. Sure. Whatever it is to keep you from getting across the street lines and ending up in trouble, we want to do whatever we can to supply that need.
I love what you're doing. I mean, the Lord surely has blessed this program. And since you're the founder of it, what was the inspiration for you starting it? Because I think that's a huge thing for the audience. I also want to get into actually the newest stuff that you're doing. But what inspired you to start this program? And aside from understanding that a lot of the teaching of kids now is off and they don't have the activities, but probably a little bit of your background of what encouraged you to do this.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because I usually forget about my background because I get so excited about talking about what I do for the program. So I always forget about telling people what I do, or what I have done. So I was inspired at an early age to work with kids. The Lord had his hands on me at a very young age, and I didn't really know. I little kid, I grew up in, 12 people in my family, 8 boys and 4 girls, and I'm number 9. Grew up in Carson, California, and I really was what they call, if you want to call it, a good kid. Out of all the kids and my mother and my siblings, my mother endured a lot. And my dad, he worked until I was probably almost 10, and then he had a back injury. So, struggles were real. And he worked a lot because he had 12 kids. And he was a pipe fitter, was injured. And then things kind of went downhill for the last probably 5 or 6 of his kids. As far as financially. So, I know the routine of having food stamps and, probation officers in and out of the house. I didn't know what they were at the time, but my brothers, out of 8 of them, 6 of them ended up in the institution, 3 going into the penitentiaries. And one actually was murdered in the federal penitentiary when I was employed with the federal probation department. So, but I saw this at a young age where my brothers were getting involved in gangs and couldn't understand why. And, you had the blood gangs and you had the Hispanic gangs, La Loma, where my two brothers ended up getting involved in. And I always wondered, we're not even Mexican, but they were involved in the Mexican gang. So it was kind of interesting. I'm Puerto Rican and Black, and I just didn't understand the rationale behind it all, because I thought we were from a good family. My mother and father raised us well. My brothers went on and did their little things. Maybe they were mischievous because my dad was working too much and he wasn't home enough. I don't know. I always had a question as to why did my brothers end up in the system? 6 out of 8. I mean, and coming from a background of my mother's upbringing and how she brought us up, and my dad's sternness, it blew me away. So that led to me always having the question of why. And I always knew that I wanted to work with kids. And so putting that all together, it came up to, okay, what are you going to do when you get to this next level? And I was fortunately blessed. God blessed me with the athletic ability. I played basketball and I played softball, and I ended up getting a softball scholarship, and I came out to UNLV to play. And that was the beginning of my career in reference to where I'm at now. So I started out at juvenile parole right out of college because I knew I wanted to be a juvenile parole officer. I was fortunate to get a state job, and then from the little state job that I had, I ended up being blessed with getting on with the juvenile parole department here. I did that for 5.5 years, and also at the same time, I worked with another agency part-time. It's called Child Haven here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it was basically a holding program, if you will, for all those kids who were under the supervision of the courts in protective order from their parents. So I had seen infants being born and then brought into Child Haven because their parents were on drug abuse, or kids who've been molested or sexually abused brought into Child Haven because they've been abused. Kids who parents are just addicts. And so I seen, not only from my own personal experience at home growing up, but I seen it really, truly firsthand in being involved in the system. And it was a huge eye opener for me, because I'd like to now look back and I think about things. I was very green as a young child because my mother, she really protected us and didn't want us to be a part of any of that. And in hindsight, I mean, for me, I think some of it I needed to know. And then some of it, of course, I didn't need to know. So she sheltered us, so to speak, away from that. So when I actually got into my own field and realized, wow, this really happens. People get abused and brothers get into trouble. So all of that encompassed with working, knowing that God had his hands on me to work with kids. I worked at Child Haven, and then I worked at the juvenile parole for 5.5 years, and I got sick of the parents. So I got sick of the parents because 80% of the time it's the parents. And so I said, there's got to be something more, because I don't want to be this parent. I don't want to be this parent where I have an issue or this PO or probation officer where I have an issue and I don't like more because I'm sick of the parents. So I said I needed to go and get to another arena. And so I went to the federal probation department. I landed there in 99 and I stayed there for 15 years, and it was a blessing in disguise. I learned to work with older criminals and the parents. And the only thing I learned that was different was the fact that it's the same thing. It's just older parents and older people who commit crimes. But it was a blessing because it allowed me to get in the adult arena and start working on my program and have the hands in the entire time with dealing with ex-felons. So that allowed me to gain more information and more material for my program. And then I created the program while I was there. In 2012, I started working on this program. And in 2012, I had over 18 ex-felons who were on these caseloads in the federal probation office, and probably 6 of them were mine. And we sat down August 2012 and talked about my program and said, I had shared with them, this is what I want to do. You all are here. You've been handpicked. I wanted some, if you will, polished speakers. I interviewed them and I chatted with them and told them exactly what I expected of them and what I'm planning to do with the program. And then that led from 2012, we opened the doors. We actually started really cultivating it in October, but from 2012 through June 3rd, 2013, 9 months, I basically opened this program, and it's been running ever since. And, the big picture for me is the background that I've embraced and had the opportunity to do is I've learned from my childhood. I've learned from being employed with the juvenile parole department and then Child Haven, working with kids who from infancy stage all the way to the age of 18 that they're in protective custody. And then also dealing with my parolees from juvenile parole, seeing some of them in the federal system. So something is not working, basically. And I kept telling myself there has to be a way where we can embrace all of that in one setting. And so hence Real Talk had already come to mind, and I've already started working on it. And it still continues to grow. It's ever evolving. There's tons of new programs that we're creating, as you know, Lance. But at the focal point of it all was the big picture was to not only just save the lives of the kids we service or the kids that we come in contact with, but also reassuring ex-felons that they have second chances. Reassuring them to let them know that just because you're on that bottom half of the platform, you can also bring yourself up and allow people to see you in a different light. To allow them to redeem themselves. And everybody makes mistakes. And the truth be told, there are a lot of criminals out there, even in the elite world, that just haven't been caught. So a criminal who sells drugs, a criminal who's beat up somebody, doesn't mean that they're horrible people. It just means that they made poor choices.
Absolutely.
And those people who are out there that are committing crimes and haven't been caught, don't worry, it's going to catch you sooner or later. And then you'll probably be part of my program if I seek you out.
Well, it's funny because I know I read somewhere that we all fell short of the glory of God. So that's interesting. But I find that your background makes you highly relatable to the kids and the parents. Too often we have to go through stuff to be relatable to people because you've actually seen what goes on. And so when a child comes and talks to you or a parent comes and talks to you, you're like, no, I know what you're going through. I can relate to this. But that's where the best solution is formed from. And one of the great things about your program is that it's exponential. So it's not just affecting one person or one group. It's a community changer. So I like how it's giving the former felons hope. It's addressing the parental aspect, and it's addressing the child aspect. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on is a new part or an expansion of your program, which is great because it's ever expanding. It doesn't get stagnant. It just grows, which is amazing because you're like, where is this funding coming from? The Lord always provides. What is this new step? I guess what's the best way you would define it in regards to helping not just with the extracurricular activities, but almost like a mentor aspect? I don't want to label it the wrong thing, but the newest part of the program that you're slowly introducing.
So let me just back up really quick because I failed to mention, and I'll get to that shortly. So also I wanted the audience to know as well that, we don't just have the speakers who are ex-felons speaking to our kids and telling them about the negatives and, giving their testimonies, but we also give a second part of that where we bring in people from the communities who've never been arrested and are doing great things, whether they're attorneys, doctors, you name it, dentists, all the different careers that they have. They come in and share their side of the story on how they evolved to be where they are without getting into the system. So this is the part where the kids have the choices. They listen to what happens when you do right, and they listen to what happens when you do wrong. So it also paints a picture for them to, when they leave us that evening, wow, do I really want to get involved in activity and become that judge? Or do I really want to walk the line and maybe cross to the different line and end up in the prison system? So I wanted to make sure the audience is aware of that. We give them this is what can happen when you do right. This is what can happen when you do wrong. And we want to help them, guide them in the right way to make the right choices. So that's the other half of the program. Also, we've given away over $120,000 to sponsor kids' activities since 2014. We were actually officially funded by private funders. So we're continuously rising in that area. And I would love to give my whole goal with this program, and this is one of them. I would love to give $100,000 a year away to kids' activities. That is my goal. So if you're listening and you have money that you don't need, feel free to reach out to us. We'll give you that information afterward. But to touch on what you talked about as far as, Lance, as far as the new and upcoming information and programs that we have. I'm aware that, one piece of the program is not enough. So, God's given me other plans and given me other ideas. So what we're doing now, we're basically calling this whole arena the Real Talk Academy. And so under that umbrella, we have the Change One meetings, which are the meetings where the kids come to once a month, and they are obligated to finish 3 in order to graduate. That's the first part of the umbrella. The second part of the academy is the Real Talk career prep classes. And these are the intro classes. And this is where the community and also people, whoever across the nation are listening and tuning in or interested, we are looking and using people who have their careers and they just want to give back and share what they do. So basically right now we're online and we're doing Zoom because obviously the pandemic, but eventually we're going to be bifurcated where we're going to have in-house and then we're going to have on Zoom as well. And you as a career, in your career, rather, if you're a doctor, if you're a dentist, if you're a plumber, if you're a auto mechanic and you want to share how you evolved, we have kids every month, the last Tuesday of the month right now, they have from 6 p.m. to 7:30, someone comes on who has a career and they share what they do and how they got there. And that is just the beginning of this. And, of course, we have kids, we're going to have them filling out their career assessments. So we know exactly what we need to seek out to use for our program and for these kids. We just opened this up last October. We're really getting really good feedback from the kids that we have. Right now, we are using our kids who have graduated and are still getting funding. Even though they don't want to become the doctors or the attorneys or even the metal fabricators, each time they've actually come to the program meeting once a month for this program, they've given really good feedback to us, even though it's not their career of choice. So if I have kids that are saying they learned something from this career that is not even their career of choice, then it's a win-win. Whether they're learning about leadership, whether they're learning about hard work or things of that nature, they've taken something away from each career prep class that they've entered. We don't want it to quit there. If there's a child, this is a career prep intro class. The idea beyond that is our career curriculum class. So if I have a child that is interested in, let's say, being a metal fabricator, they really enjoyed the class. They want to know if they can take another one or an advanced class, if you will. So we have what we call the career curriculum course, wherein they can sign up for that. And by the way, all these classes are free. Nothing is being paid for these kids. The idea behind that is, number one, is many of these kids can't afford taking these classes, nor can parents afford to take them. So we try to open the doors, and the whole idea behind this big picture of Real Talk, in my opinion, in my personal views, is that I want to take away your excuses. I've funded you. I've given you career classes. I've given you curriculum classes. I have provided you a leadership class. I have provided you a career mentor. What's your excuse of not being able to be a productive citizen?
Very true. I love
it. All boils down to choices.
Absolutely.
And that's really it.
You're
so
showing
that's what we're
them.
working on now.
You're showing them light and dark. I love it. But I think one of the great things, especially about this point of the program, is you're sparking that interest early on. I think there's a lot of listeners that would have loved to have this program just to have access to something they might be interested in, whether that become their career or something they never thought they'd have access to when they start pursuing, whether it's art or law or medicine or, physical training, all of these different things. And again, it also involves the community. So it's benefiting everyone involved, because a lot of times people say, well, how can I give back? What can I do? And now it couldn't be much easier in the privacy of your own home. Again, with this pandemic, it's also provided kind of a step up in technology and people having access. Even though people are somewhat separated, there's still a connection that's happening where people can give back. And something simple as your time is a huge component. But I love what you're doing. I love how the program's expanding for people that are interested in this aspect, because again, I don't want to just say, send everyone to the site. What is the best way that people can contact you? Should we segment it to where if you're interested in the career prep, if you're interested in the Change One, or just should the website as a whole be suggested?
Yes, definitely would love to have people who are interested to get in contact with us. The best way to do it, you can reach us either by phone. It's 702-625-2417, or you can reach us by email at info@realtalk.org. realtalkyip.org. So it's info@realtalkyip.org. And we would love to hear from you. This is not just a local program, I like to say, because the goal is for me to take the program nationally. We currently have a chapter in El Paso, Texas. It's a little dormant now because, obviously the pandemic had hit them very hard. So they're pretty much shut down right now, but the director out there is still working the program. It's just no kids, and their program is a little bit behind ours because they just opened their doors in November of 2019. So, but would love to have you guys, anyone that is interested, if you have interest in even bringing one to your community, I would love to be a part of helping you do that. We are in the process of licensing agreement to be had if anybody's interested in other states. So we do have a licensing agreement. Look, I didn't get into this business of trying to make money. That God didn't tell me to put this together for me to be a millionaire. He gave it to me. I'm sharing it. The whole idea behind this is saving lives, and not just the youths, but it's a holistic approach. And I'm looking for like-minded individuals who want to jump on our board and do the right thing, not only in this community, but communities across the nation. And I know for sure around this world, and at least around in this United States, that we are in dire need to put some money and some direction into these youth, because at the end of the day, they grow up to be young men and young women. And those young men and women unfortunately end up in the system where there's no direction. You get people who end up in the system. And it's totally unfortunate because, we are the land of the free and tons of money, and we don't put enough money into our children. And that's where we fall short.
I agree. I think it's a big, I think it's a huge component. I like the fact of the expansion because these are community changers. The program itself, where it doesn't just affect, and I invite anyone to check out the program if you might be interested in attending yourself, getting your kids involved, yourself getting involved, or even taking it to your community. Because again, this also helps the community stay engaged together because you have the activities being provided. They become one with the charity. The kids are start giving back. They become in almost stepping into leadership roles because someone's actually told them they actually have worth and shown them as such. It's one thing to say it's something. It's a different thing to actually now provide and say, look, I'm investing in you because I believe in you. Right. Other people might not have believed in you. And I think in some of these instances, you may be the first, this program and yourself is the first time that some of these kids have seen hope and actually sees the investment in them. And I think, you've hit it right on the head with that. Now is the time, as it should have always been, to invest in kids, because that's, as people are complaining, well, they're not getting taught. Well, you can change that. It's one thing to point out a problem. It's another thing to effectively address it. And it's programs like this that are doing it and actually showing a blueprint for other people of how they can get involved, what they can do, and really help, formulate a change overall.
Absolutely. And I always say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, and people like to say, well, those aren't my kids. My kids are fine. I said, actually, they are your kids because you pay taxes. So you didn't have them, but they're yours, because once they end up in our system, yes, they're part of your income, so to speak, or your bill, because it happens, And I don't know if people understand, Lance, and that if a kid goes to an institution, and that's here in Nevada, and it varies in different states. I know California is outrageous, and so is New York, but it's approximately $200 a day for a child to be housed in an institution. Mm-hmm. So by the time that kid is 18, if he goes and starts going at 12, 13, we'd be paying for his college fees and the amounts of money that we put out if that kid keeps coming in and out of the system. So I challenge the people who are listening to really take heed and understand that, these kids out here, some of them were born into a havoc mess. They didn't have a choice. And so we can't allow them to continue on the path that their parents did, because now it's just a revolving door. So we have to take a look at the bigger picture and understand that if you don't start from the bottom, it'll never get right on the top, and unfortunately, we turn our heads sometimes and as citizens, and just because they're not our kids. And quite frankly, that's all a lie. It is your kid, because if they end up in our system, you are paying for them. You just never met them.
Amen.
Yeah.
Say, Jamie.
No, I absolutely love how you hold these kids accountable, and that you make them earn what they're trying to achieve. I commend that. I love that. I mean, you see a lot of kids, and I have children, and you see a lot of kids that everything is handed to them, and they don't appreciate it. But in this situation, they'll learn. They're learning how to appreciate what they're given, and they're earning, and they're working for it, and that's such a great character builder, and it's so great. I mean, we've talked before. I mean, I'm an ex-con. I was in prison. My mother, she was a bartender, and I was always alone. I was allowed to do basically whatever I wanted to, and it got me in trouble. But nobody ever held me accountable. So, I was just running around doing what I wanted, and I ended up where I did. Luckily I learned, and I've been walking with Jesus, and I've been, since we've talked, I've grown so much with the Lord. And actually, I'm hoping tomorrow, I'm hoping to meet somebody who's really going to help out and help to push this in New Jersey, because New Jersey really needs it. We have Camden, we have Newark, we have some very high crime area. So, I mean, it's really needed here, and I hope to help with that also.
Well, that's awesome. And Jamie, not that I wasn't trying to bring your name up, but Lance was the communicator, so I apologize for that. So I'm excited though that you're taking the bull by the reins too, and jumping on board with us, because look at you look across the nation. There's certainly many cities out there that are more prevalent with young youth violence and deaths and just just an outrage of things that are happening in the community that we need to grab hold of. And when you have a community that you live in that makes national news, FBI would call that a clue. There's a problem.
Yeah. So
we need to make sure that we can tap into these different cities such as yours, and also in Chicago, the same thing. This is where it's needed. And kids need to hear different things and positive things, and having people talk to them who've been there and done that, and not just your therapist. I'm not saying therapists are not worthy, but at the end of the day, I know all about therapy. I used to refer to all the people on my caseload to therapy, but they also needed real talk too, because therapists have a way of sharing their insights to folks in a professional manner. But I'm here to tell you, this is what happens in prison. We don't sugarcoat it, but we don't glorify it either. So, and the parents need to be made aware too. And that's the other part of the program I didn't introduce as well, but that happens the same night the kids are there. It's a parent group, a mandatory parent group, where my speakers talk to the parents about the issues that they're having with their kids. And it's real talk. It's not, degrade the parents. It's just allowing the parents to see that you have your finger in these issues with your child, and we're here to help you look at it. And there's nothing wrong with, seeing that you have an issue, but the dialogue that's created in the parent group, and then when they both leave, the kids leave and the parent leave, they go home. Now they have something to talk about, because that parent has learned something about how he or she may not be doing things the right way, and recognize it. Now they want to kind of reconcile things with their child. So it works both ways. And it, again, it's an old cliche, but it's so true. It takes a village to raise the kids. We have to start paying attention a little more, or else we're going to continue to have the teenage suicides. We're going to continue to have the teenage, robbing and stealing and breaking down doors and GTAs and things like that. We have to bring them into a different light. And a lot of these kids are looking for that. A lot of these kids are looking for structure. A lot of kids want to be told, no, you can't do this, instead of running the streets and doing what I want, because that just tells you mom really doesn't care, or dad doesn't care, or doesn't have the time to care because they're working 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah. Apathy is not the approach that this generation needs. And I think it's summed up in James 4:17, to know to do right and to not do it is sin. And I think people oftentimes forget that part, to know that you can do something, to know that you can actually help someone, and to turn your head the other way. That's wrong. I think for too long, people have gotten comfortable and complacent in their own comforts, and that can lead to selfishness. And especially in this time, to see people in need, you need to be selfless. I mean, that's what these programs are meant to do, is to bring people in. If you don't know how you can help, but everyone can help. You don't have to do everything, but you can do something. And I think the programs like this really show what, because you have a whole team, but it's you. I mean, it's the Lord's program, but you actually start to see that when the Lord tells you to do something, he will take you every step of the way. And that's how these programs are amazing and blessed, and continue to grow and bless those who, attend them, honestly.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. Those of you who are listening out there and you have something in your heart that God has given you, don't shy away from it. Even if you don't have the money, You don't think you have the time. You don't have the endurance. You don't know if you're going to make it. Well, let me tell you something. If God gave it to you, he's going to supply for you, because I know that I was supposed to do this. I would have these reoccurring dreams. I wrote a book and talked about Real Talk and all my testimonials for myself. And I knew that I was supposed to be doing this. So if you have something in your heart, you're supposed to be working with kids, follow your heart. God will protect and provide for you. I did this coming out of federal probation, basically kicked out of federal probation because I got injured. And that's the whole reason why I stopped at 15 years. But long story short, it was a blessing in disguise. Rolled right into it. I had no money for the program. I had no one helping me. And the entire time, it was still happening. I got money. We just were blessed after 7.5 years with a 10,000 square foot building that someone just purchased for Real Talk. And then the Raiders just donated $40,000 to our organization, and it's going to the kids' activity funds. I mean, that's just the top of the iceberg right now. I'm waiting for the rest of the stuff to keep falling in my lap. But this just didn't happen overnight. You know, all this faith that I had and knew I had to do this, and people would say, well, how are you going to do that? You know, you don't have enough money to bring forth to the kids. You know, you can't have a program where you say you're going to pay for kids' activities, but you don't have money. So now people are not going to believe you. All of the naysaying, oh, this is, you know, I don't know if you should do this. This is what you shouldn't do. This is what you should do. And all of that. And I just listened to it. And I stayed the course because I know God gave me this and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And with that being said, every step of the way, whether it was a block wall in front of me, it got knocked down. I've been able to promote the program. Every time I turn around, when I'm in need of money, something happens. Somebody comes and drops 1,000 here, 2,000 there. And let me tell you something, those of you who are non-believers or listening, you hope you're believers, but here's the thing. I knew what I needed to have this program run. And all that was faith. And that has lasted 7.5 years. And that has allowed me to have, not me chasing people for money, people chasing me to give me money.
I love it. And I would tell our audience, I'll leave them with this, is that about 3 years ago, Sheree and I were speaking and talk about walking in faith, because you're supposed to walk in faith and not by sight. She told me what the Lord showed her. He's like, no, he showed me a building. I know I'm going to get a building. And now about 3 years later, guess what? You have a building. And it's by no logical way that a person would have figured that out, because they said, hey, listen, you're going to have to go get some money. You're going to have to go look at property. And you're like, you don't know my Father. And that's the whole thing, is to see, just stay the course. When you stay the course, God does not lie. So everything he says is going to come to pass, but it's on his timing, not ours. And it's that patience that, you know, it works. It works in us. So.
Absolutely. And I'm just grateful and thankful that, you know, God has allowed us, Lance, Jamie, to cross paths, because, you know, he's putting his minions into work. He's lining them all up to make sure that we get this thing right before we leave this earth. And I'm just excited to see what the next step is going to be, because, you know, the umbrella that we have as far as Real Talk, I mean, there's much, much more to it. You know, the next phase is obviously, we're working on that phase now. It's a career mentoring program. Then from there, we're going to go to the leadership program. And then from the leadership program, we're going to go to the career mentoring program. And then the final phase is going to go to career prep meetings, classes for parents.
I love it.
That's the last phase. Get these parents engaged. We want them to become those, you know, those attorneys, if they still have it in their passion in their mind, because they stopped because they had kids. And, you know, oh, I got 3 kids. Now I can't become that attorney or become that phlebotomist or become that x-ray technician. We need to focus on the top and hope that we can create some of that positivity, and it peels and just drizzles all over their children. It has to be a holistic approach, and that's the final phase of the product, at least right now, unless God gives me something different. But
you never know. He gives us what we can handle in that moment.
Yeah, you know. So, but I thank you, Lance.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, I thank you, Lance, for bringing this forth. I thank you, Jamie, for having an interest and a heart to do so. I'm just looking for more, and I'm excited to see what God has planned, not only for this community, for the communities across the nation who jump on board with Real Talk, because this is God driven. It's not me.
No, absolutely.
That's
Amen.
Sure.
And guys, you can check out realtalkyip.org. I want to thank Sheree for stopping by. I know she's busy. You've got probably about 15 meetings after this, so I'll let you get out of here. Thank you again so much for stopping by, sis. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Lance. We appreciate you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
you guys
you very
take
much.
care. God bless.
You too. God bless.
You guys. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time on Hope and the Truth. God bless.